of the National Hockey League.
Yeah, there's certainly a buzz around the rink, whether there's the fans that you are still seeing it from, the fans camped outside throughout camp this week. Matthias Sapovalov was talking about how he was watching the run back home and waking his parents up in the middle of the night because he would be yelling when something happened. So these guys certainly excited. Zach Whitecloud and Nick Hague had a chance to talk to some of the prospects earlier in the week. So it's always an opportunity for these young players to learn from players who have been in their position, right? But it adds a whole new layer when they're hearing from guys who literally just had the opportunity to lift the Stanley Cup. I think it allows everything to hit home a little bit more. As far as what we have ahead, it's Team Red versus Team White. Pretty similar to the groups that they've been working with all week long, with just a couple of exceptions. But each team will have 3 centermen, 7 defensemen. So each line will be missing a 4th line center, so they'll kind of rotate that in and out. But what do you think it is that the coaching staff, the development staff, what do they look for in this situation?
Well, let's start with the coaching staff.
Yep.
And Ryan Craig has been running the development camp this year, and that's fresh on the heels of being named the head coach of the Henderson Silver Knights. So that's brought a different vibe and different feel to it, and his first real responsibility with moving up from the assistant coach with the Vegas Golden Knights after the last 6 years to now running his own team. So I think it's been a great opportunity for Ryan to really show and flex his muscle as a head coach and running this camp. And then you get down to the players, and they want to see not necessarily structure as much as passion, work ethic, and supporting your teammates, and a little bit of, not urgency, but this is the last chance to showcase to the scouts that are all up watching an opportunity to be able to make a mark.
And a lot for Ryan Craig to look forward to, but spending as much time as he will be spending with Brian McCormick has to be toward the top of that list. He'll be having lots of conversations.
It's another point of developing camp. Right? Just break it in a little bit, let them get used to it, build up a bit of a resiliency to my constant questioning. But you know what I think is so much fun is, sometimes I think we tend to think of this week as an orientation, and it is. A lot of the new draft picks getting to know the Vegas landscape and the organization, and also for the scouting staff, management staff, see the fruits of their labor all on the ice at the same time. But, as Will Nickel, Director of Player Development, reminded us earlier today, there are guys here in a free agent capacity fighting for jobs, trying to make that impression. And Alex Svetlikov is a great example. Came to this camp last year in a tryout capacity, showed very, very well, and got a contract and spent the year in Savannah last year. And now he's back looking to prove more. So there are guys today who are going to be looking to make a statement.
Joe Fleming, another one of those.
Yeah.
He needed that last year.
Took
and
it
Darren,
right out of my mouth.
I want to let you talk, Darren, about how actually national anthem. We'll wait and listen to this because Will Nichols excited for the fans to yell "Knight" for these guys. There we go. We got a night. I'm not sure. I don't know if on the viewer side they're able to hear. I can't hear through my headphones. I don't know if the viewers and listeners are able to hear the national anthem right now, but they got the nice big night chant from the crowd, which is great.
Robust.
Darren, about Joe Fleming, how much are fans going to enjoy watching this guy?
Well, we got a great introduction to him last summer, and then through training camp, and he's a player that also earned his way into a contract through this process.
An NHL contract.
But you will not go through today without noticing Joe Fleming. He's a defenseman. I've talked to some people in the organization. They could actually see down the road maybe seeing being a tweener between a forechecker and playing up front and on the back end. So offers some versatility there. But his main contribution right now is a guy that makes sure that you are aware when he's on the ice. And that's really valuable when it comes to the games, but also practices. He raises the level and the investment of players in a January Tuesday that you're going through a rough stretch. He's a fun guy to be around, a leader, and just watch for Joe throughout this game. He'll play on the defensive side today.
He was given a talk, like, don't go too hard on these guys. Save some of it for the rookie camp when we're facing other teams, not your future teammates. But be looking for him.
We'll let you loose.
Be looking for him to lay some big licks today.
But during the course of this training camp or this development camp, it's been operated and produced by Ryan Craig, and what that has really led to is using a lot of the National Hockey League drills that the Vegas Golden Knights use. That in itself tests the players, challenges the players to their great opportunity in front of Team White. But it also raises the level of investment and how the players are producing, and that's been fun on that side of it, is just seeing players adapt to a different mindset from a National Hockey League coach. Ryan Craig was there for 6 years as a VGK assistant coach. Has really, the organization has felt, has raised the level of this camp.
I think there was a benefit too to Bruce Cassidy was here for the first few days of this camp, and when he came last year, he didn't really know many people in the organization or how things would operate
like
around
anybody.
Here. So for him to come in and just be more comfortable, for him to be more comfortable, that's something that trickles down. The coaching staff has their rhythm now. I think all of that's really helpful because, like Brian mentioned earlier, the biggest goal of this camp is to show these players what it means to be a Vegas Golden Knight.
They had a scrimmage earlier in the week, and they moved the schedule around from past development camps. And Bob Lowe's talked to us yesterday. He said this has been the best development camp of the 7 that they've had. So that speaks highly. But the earlier scrimmage this week was a 1-1 game going into a shootout. So one area that Bob did say was they were hoping to see a couple more goals today.
Yeah, he did. I'm sure the goalies hope to have something to say about that because they're trying to prove something here too, right?
But it's something that Will Nickel mentioned earlier today too, just of how well stacked the goaltending position is throughout the organization right now, with save that was made there by Carl Lindbaum. But Carl Lindbaum has signed his contract. Jesper Vikman turned pro at the end of last season, got a stint with the Silver Knights. He probably, if you look at what Isaiah Seville did last year between Savannah and going to Henderson late, maybe that's a path for Jesper Vikman. But right now it's a very solid succession plan over the next few years probably for the VGK goaltending situation.
Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about Vikman when he makes it in, but since we're looking at Lindbaum now, Will Nickel compared him to potentially being able to have a path similar to UC Saros. He compared them just due to their size. Obviously the goaltender with the Nashville Predators, so just a comparison to keep your eye on as this goes on, but definitely deep in the goaltending department. And I believe Isaiah Seville will be playing the entire game for Team Red.
Lindbaum is 6 feet. That is right on the edge of being a National Hockey League goaltender. Saros is certainly an exception to that rule, listed slightly underneath 6 feet, but you got to have some pretty exceptional skills in being able to read the game as a goaltender. 6 feet. We don't think of that as small, but we were past the goaltenders in the hallway yesterday, and we all looked up and made the comment that they just seem to be getting taller and taller and taller every year.
Especially coming off
6'4" by comparison.
Yeah,
I was going to say, especially coming off a cup run where Vegas Golden Knights fans have been watching big Aiden Hill between the pipes.
I still can't get over just how chillaxed that guy is, Aiden Hill, leaning on the back of the crossbar.
Yeah, we need to take some lessons.
Just absorb it all. And I see Lucky in the stands. That could prove to be problematic if Lucky gets the head in the way.
He scared you in the hallway.
Yeah, banging on the glass. I was walking in, and then I realized it wasn't even for me at all. It was all about Brian McCormick, who obviously works with the Silver Knights. Hey, on the subject of Ryan Craig, you were working with the introduction of Ryan the other day at the Dollar Loan Center, and just how you watched him go through what was a pretty important day for the new coach of the American Hockey League Club.
Well, I think what's great about Ryan Craig is that there's a lot of poise there, and of course, the experience he brings, not just from his NHL tenure behind the bench with the Golden Knights as an assistant coach, but also a guy who had a really successful AHL playing career, and NHL for that matter too, but played over 700 games in the AHL, was a captain of 9 different teams. He knows the league, and I think he has a great combination of knowing what it takes to win in the AHL, but also knowing literally exactly what Bruce Cassidy needs these guys to be ready to make the jump to the VGK. So Ryan was very poised and had the humility to say, hey, this is going to be my first head coaching job. There's learning for me to do along the way as well, but he's ready to take that step. And I made mention to Kelly McCrimmon. I said, just looking at him, it's like central casting. He looks like a head coach. So it was a great first day. And, he's going to get through this development camp, he said. A little family time, but, next season comes quick.
Captain of 9 different teams. Didn't just play for 9 different teams. You hear that stat thrown out, how many stops a player has had during the course of their career. But a captain of 9 different teams?
And Kelly McCrimmon, who had him in Brandon the very beginning, he said, as long as I've known Ryan, he's been a coach in every locker room he's ever been in. So I think this path, everyone knew that at some point Ryan Craig was going to be running his own bench, and the Silver Knights excited that they get the first crack at it.
Now, on the topic of leadership, that's another thing that they want to see throughout this camp. Some of these guys who it's their second camp, they want to see them step up. Brendan Brisson, a big one. Daniel Chayka, a big one. Lucas Cormier. They've been really impressed so far with the way that those guys have kind of taken the reins. We were actually, Darren and I were standing in the hall yesterday. Brian, you may have been there as well. Will Nickel was standing there, and Daniel D'Amato walks by, and Will is telling him, hey, you better make sure that your team's dressed, ready to go. This is part of being a leader. Right. So they're always, hammering those skills home as much as they possibly can. And it's cool to watch some of those guys take some of the younger guys under their wings. And even the same goes for guys like Joe Fleming, who were able to, sign a deal after last camp. It's good for guys like him to set an example and show a path for some of the other free agents in camp.
Something I've kind of picked up on, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I wonder what you think, Ashley. We've mentioned how good this week has been for these players. It feels like a very mature camp.
It does.
Feels like a mature group, and I wonder how much of that also has to do with guys like Brendan Brisson, Lucas Cormier, Isaiah Seville. They had taxi squad experience during this cup run. I mean, for young guys at development camp, they've seen a lot heading into this development camp.
No, without a doubt. And you learn a lot just from watching up top. And Darren and I throughout the week asked a couple of guys, what'd you learn from watching the run? And a lot of the answers were just how hard it is to win. I mean, they've watched a lot of cup runs on TV, throughout their lives. Brendan Brisson, one especially. He's grown up around National Hockey League players his entire life, so he's definitely seen his fair share. But that seemed to be the biggest takeaway, was just the commitment that it takes to win, and you hope that it, lights a fire under all these kids and, encourages them to keep dreaming, because it could be them one day.
Yeah, you have a real wide range at this camp. Thomas Huronen just selected in Nashville at the National Hockey League draft last week. So he's been part of the organization for less than 10 days. And then you have players that like Lucas Cormier, who was part of the taxi squad during the entire Stanley Cup run and was on the ice in street clothes, but on the ice when the celebration was taking place over at T-Mobile, and soaking that in, and the celebration in the dressing room, and what occurred there. So some opportunity here for some give back by those players. And you mentioned the comment by Will Nickel yesterday about being a leader, and that jumped out at me as well. It wasn't trying to hide anything. The amount of coaching that takes place on and then off the ice, and guiding these guys and pointing them in the right direction, and giving them urges to become that leader was really interesting. Isaiah Seville with the stop there as the puck was taken hard to the net. Seville is a great kid. Like, being able to spend any time with him, he's always got a smile on his face.
Always. Great energy about him.
Southpaw, it's always good to have a Southpaw mixed in. And training camp last year, there was a bunch of them with Logan Thompson, obviously at the head of the class. But I always love having the guy that catches with his right hand. Just it's easier to know who's net you don't have to see the back of the jersey or know the color combinations of the kit at all.
I think we've had a little bit of number rearranging on the rosters because I don't have a white 62 on my sheet, but it might have been Mel St. Denis on the drive to the net. But it's been a busy start and a good start for Isaiah Seville.
The challenges don't ever stop for a play-by-play guy, do they? There's the voice of the Henderson Silver Knights.
It's July for all of us, right?
and they're already testing you with numbers that may not be out there or have been switched around. So I'm glad that you're here.
Well, that's
you know left shots, right shots, you know skating styles, so it won't take you long to figure this out for us.
Well, that chance we just saw was for Abram Weeb, who was a 7th rounder in last year's draft, spent the year in the BCHL with Chilliwack and was the defenseman of the year. And we hear it so often from Will Nickel, and you want to hear this from development staff, scouting staffs, value pick over and over and over again, but Abram Weeb is a player that we've heard Zach Whitecloud comparables from Will, but a great year, and they think they might have found some gold in the 7th round last year.
And I wonder, you look at his career path, and he's already, the amazing part about Zach Whitecloud is he acknowledged it. He was never the best player on any team that he played on, but got better and better and better as he went along, and he took that same Tier 2 route that Weeb is in right now.
Abram Weeb will be at North Dakota next year.
That's a very substantial school.
It's a good spot to go.
North Dakota has a large presence here this week. A couple of different representations from the Fighting Hawks, which is impressive on my part just to get that right.
Speaking of representation, Euronin is going to be with the Ottawa 67s next season.
Oh, drafting
former home of Bruce Cassidy.
Yes.
So Bruce Cassidy said, well, your work's done. He's going to the 67s. He should be good. Jokingly, of course.
Bruce Cassidy won a Memorial Cup with the Ottawa 67s. One of the most famous jerseys in all of sports, the barbershop pole sweaters with the different stripes around them. Butch was a top prospect, first round pick coming out of the Ottawa 67s. And Brian Kilray, the legendary coach there, and then hurt his knee, but was an offensive defenseman. I think back to, and I was in the area of major junior hockey at that point, but Bruce, the game today is almost tailor-made to what type of player Bruce was back then, because Bruce isn't he would have been a fairly undersized guy back in the late 80s. We got some sound coming from the rink now.
There we go.
Now it feels like a scrimmage, doesn't it?
Hopefully we can hear some chirps going in here. Don't know, but
well, if we don't hear any chirps from out there, we'll supply some.
I was going to say, I've been waiting for Darren to chirp me since we got started.
Well, you guys were here early and had a great conversation with Will Nickel, who is going to join us during the second intermission of this scrimmage today. And Tim Speltz, the general manager of the Henderson Silver Knights, is going to stop by here in Studio 31 during the first intermission. So we'll be able to dive into a lot more detail from the management side of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Henderson Silver Knights during the two intermissions as we enjoy this scrimmage as Isaiah Seville comes up with another save. When you guys look at this, do you think we're going to see more? I don't know whether we're going to see more goals.
I don't know.
Today.
It's not looking like it early. But, aside from seeing more goals, that is something that Bob Lowe's mentioned yesterday wanting to hear. He also said he wants it to be more competitive than the first scrimmage of the week, which he acknowledged the first scrimmage of the week was actually pretty competitive considering it happened on just the second day of camp, and the first day wasn't even a full day. Right. So they, like you said, they're structuring camp different this year. Last year it was on days 4 and 6.
I like it. There was a good chance by Noah Ellis right off that draw as if he had heard Darren Millard challenge him, so he's already learning.
I thought for sure that the jinx when golf commentator says he hasn't missed a putt all week, and it's Sunday afternoon within 5 feet. And then they missed that putt. I thought for sure that putt was going to go in the net. When Bob Lowe said that yesterday, that he was looking for a little more elevated intensity, I was thinking, did I watch that right? Because I thought it was a really good scrimmage the first time around. And then he went on to point out several areas that he was really impressed with the opening scrimmage. But the intensity and being dialed in has been great all week. The practices, following a similar structure of Bruce Cassidy, and no surprise there with Ryan Craig running a lot of these skates. Some coaches love the whiteboard and running through the drills and then going out and doing it, and then at water break and you run through the drill again. Ryan Craig has taken that Bruce Cassidy approach where it's drill after drill after drill. There's not a lot of downtime in any type of practice, which also adds to the intensity and the pace of a practice.
Yeah, keep it moving, and that's another thing they're relying on. The
2-0. There we get our first goal.
That's Brett Link, free agent, headed to Colorado College this coming year. 26 goals and 55 points with Fargo of the USHL last season, getting things started.
Will told us this morning he's big, strong, and can shoot the puck. Clearly.
That's pretty much the combination you look for.
And in that case, he was able to skate and be able to be up in the ice. You didn't need to be big or strong or shoot the puck really hard in that case, but you had to be able to keep up with the pace of being able to convert that pass. So add another skill to Brett Link's repertoire in being able to tap that in. It looks like an easy goal, but the only reason why that's a 2-0 is being able to read a play and then turn on the acceleration and be able to be in the right spot to convert it.
And they do feel like he set the table for himself to really garner some NHL interest.
Big opportunity for these kids on the free agent side that are invited to this camp. And there's players like Cormier, who you see at the top of your screen, rolling around the blue line now at the bottom, number 40, where he's just adding layers to his game and getting experience and reps and high prospect within the organization. But the free agents that come to camp, they're trying to catch an eye, and those are the players that have, if there's pressure in this environment, that's where it falls on their shoulders.
And they can just look up on the left side of the stands, and you see all the hockey operations and scouting staff watching. That's got to be pretty pressure packed.
I wonder at what point in your career you get used to that, because you figure at this point you've gone through it, whether it's junior or college, trying to get selected to go to juniors in college. You've already been drafted for the drafted fellas, for the undrafted fellas. You were at least, made a good enough impression to get invited to this. I wonder at what point that doesn't bother you anymore, if ever.
I think it's more pronounced here as well, and we'll see if we can get a shot of it at some points during the scrimmage. But the hockey operations side of the Vegas Golden Knights and Henderson Silver Knights, they're on the left side of the stands here at Sydney National Arena and the Summerlin Hospital rink, and they all stand at the top like scouts do, leaning on the bar, the ledge, and there's a cast of, at the start of the week, 15, 20 people up there, all with their papers, all watching. They all look like scouts, and I would imagine that it would be a little bit intimidating to go through something like that, knowing that somebody's going to see everything that you're doing up there. And
there's so many of them this time around too, right? That you're really trying to stand out amongst a bigger group.
And a shout out to that group, because they set the table on the pro side and the amateur side, led by Bob Lowe's and Von Karpen. But they are in rinks all year, and that starts later this month with the Ivan Holinka tournament, which will be overseas this year. And they have been going nonstop, which has only been accelerated in the last little bit between going to the draft combine. And some of these guys with the scouting department haven't been home since early June. They went to the scouting combine, and then the Stanley Cup playoffs were on, so they joined the Vegas Golden Knights. Then you get into the draft, and then you get into development camp. And even for people that are used to being on the road all winter, this last stretch they're looking to go forward to going home after today.
That's another thing. So much is going on behind the scenes. As the team was making its cup run, there's so much work going in behind the scenes that we don't hear or talk about quite enough.
You can't see it. If this would be the perfect opportunity to get a tight shot of Brian McCormack and do a double box and insert. I'm not telling Ryan Floyd how to do this. I'm just in my head, I'm picturing this. McCormack's watching this game like he's calling the game.
I think
and getting used to all the numbers.
We can let him call the game.
And
I think we should.
And doing some flow. And
I'm in the library, and the test is in 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's trying to participate. McCormack's participating and being part of our conversation, but he's also got his play-by-play hat on and following some of this.
Well, I'll mention Lucas Cormier just carrying in deep right now. There, you got me now.
Yeah.
But I think Lucas Cormier is such a fun development story this year as well. I mean, he came in with high expectations. Centering pass by Sapovalov is broken up. But, he had such an opportunity this year in Henderson. It was a rough season for the Silver Knights in terms of wins and losses. But, when Daniil Miramanov got called up to the VGK when he was injured for stretches too, that really put Cormier in a position as a rookie of, okay, you're going to be power play one. We're going to run our offense from the blue line through you. And how quickly he adjusted to that. Had a terrific season. As a young guy, you're still trying to learn the defensive side of the game too, but he was being called upon. We need you to be a productive offensive defenseman at a young age. And it'll be interesting, ask Tim Speltz about that when he joins us during the intermission, but boy, did he do a good job of that last year and grew up quickly.
We asked him on I think it was the second day of camp, Darren, how he's changed the most, and he was like, well, I'm still the same person, but maybe just a little bit mature now. On and off the ice.
He was pretty quiet and stoic from the get-go.
A player that was challenged in his last year of junior to really dial in the defending aspect of the position. They know all about the offensive skills and being able to read plays and jump into the action and create opportunities. But they really wanted to see some extra emphasis on defending, and he did that. And then he turns pro, and he's asked to sort of become a hybrid, not just learn the defensive side, but also, because of the situation, really contribute offensively.
I think part of that lesson, too, especially when you're as talented as he was at the junior level. He was the Quebec Major League's Defenseman of the Year back-to-back years, first guy ever to do that. But at that level, you can outskate your mistakes. Mm-hmm. And you learn quickly in the American Hockey League that you can't, or at least not when you first get started. And so with that, he had to also kind of learn how to evaluate the rush and learn not only when to jump in, but when to stand his ground. And he picked that up very quickly on a very young blue line that had himself, Daniel Chayka. And, again and again, you hear the coaching staff talk about just how important Jake Bischoff has been to getting those players acclimated, and that's the reason why he's going to be back with the Silver Knights for the next 2 years.
Hear a lot of things about Lucas Cormier and the growth that he's made defending, his offensive skills. One area that we will all hear more and more as he progresses through the organization is his shot. It's an understated part of his game. It's heavy, and it's quick, but it's heavy. And it gets there, and I'm looking forward to seeing that on display.
He does such a good job of not only, like you say, it has zip on it, probably more than people realize, but he gets it through. As a glove save made by Carl Lindbaum, he gets it through, and that's the end of our first period. If you're constantly hitting shin guards on that first layer of shot blockers, top of the circle, you're going to get in trouble. Lucas Cormier always makes sure the puck gets into the chaos areas.
Chaos? as we bring you back into Studio 31.
There we go. Thank you, Darren, for that hint there as I'm looking for the next headset because I believe we're having a guest this intermission. So
I think I have it.
Never mind me.
I'm hiding it from you, Ashley. I apologize.
It's on that side.
Tim Speltz is going to join us, the general manager of the Henderson Silver Knights. By the way, the Hockey News is out with its Champions issue and found this over in
we
the
love
office
to
side.
see.
And right there, you wouldn't expect anything else but the Stanley Cup Championship photo headlining this, and with Mark Stone and Vegas
Expressive
Baby.
Mark
So,
Stone.
very expressive Mark Stone. So that was that's a cool part of today, being able to enjoy the first look at the Hockey News Championship Champions issue.
The Cup Tour with the players, each of their days with the Cup, beginning this weekend as well.
Nick Waugh leading it off
Yes.
in Quebec.
Nick Waugh, Alex Pietrangelo. It'll make its way up to New England. And Tim Speltz is in the room, ready to join us.
Come on over here,
Yeah.
Tim. We're going to sit you down. It's great to have a walk-on guest as we're free-flowing in here. Tim, you for people that don't know him as well as us, hockey lifer, Western Hockey League, and the American Hockey League now with the general manager of the Henderson Silver Knights, but also one of those guys that will throw jabs at you nonstop. So I don't know.
Let him
Don't
fly,
I know
Tim. Let him fly.
I don't know who put your chair down that low, but we'll try and make sure that we get it up, or else you can just stand.
Or I'll just stand.
Yeah. But I think it was Brian McCormick that was responsible for that.
He wants to be bigger than me. I get it. Yeah.
This is just proof perfect. All we know how to do is sit in this chair and talk. If anything goes haywire, we have no idea how to handle it.
Can you just adjust Tim's volume a little bit so he can hear through the headset as we go? Chaos, right?
Chaos.
Thank you.
On the
This is
fly.
awesome.
Awesome.
How's
Technology.
What's this week been like for you watching the development camp under the supervision of Ryan Craig as well?
Yeah. So, I think two things. I think Ryan Craig has really taken charge with it, and that's been excellent. Obviously, a real long year for the Vegas Golden Knights, and great for everyone that it was. But some of the Bruce Cassidy was here, John Stevens was here at the start, and those guys understandably have kind of turned it over to Krager to run things. He's done a great job with Will Nickel. So Will this is his baby. These are his guys. And it's been great to see Krager take charge and run the practices that he wants to run, to let those players, I think, that are going to be Silver Knights in the fall understand what it's going to be like a little bit. And the week for me personally has been great to get to know the players a little bit better. You can see the evolution of the players from last year to this year, whether it's the guys that played for us, Cormier, Shaika, Brisson, the guys that played for us now, they're back for another development camp and a lot more comfortable and ready to take a step. And then you see some other guys, Alex Svetlikov, Daniel D'Amato, Patrick Gay, and the step they've taken. And then you've got that other level of guys that are here for the first time. And those guys are getting to understand it. They're nervous at the start. It's totally unknown for them. But you see how those guys take steps this week. And then we have, Will does a great job. We've got the on-ice component, but then we've got off-ice as well. And then we're looking at, two levels, I think, of step and development for athletes, both on ice for them as athletes and then off ice as people. So it's been excellent.
Tim, we were talking about how mature this group feels this week. And again, if you look at the roster, there is a good Silver Knights presence with Brissons, Cormiers, Chaikas, Sevilles. But beyond that, that's also a group that was part of this cup run. They were part of the taxi squad. They were around this the entire spring. There probably isn't a much better development opportunity for players to experience than that.
No question about it. I mean, the taxi squad was great for the guys. Not only were they close and around the VGK players, but they were also at the games. And they saw the level of, the increase from round one to round two and how intense it is. And they have now a clue what it looks like. And that's really important for their development as well. And I think when we see players come to the American League from junior or college or Europe, doesn't matter, they think they know what it looks like. And until they actually experience it, they don't. And now they're more prepared for year two coming back because they have experienced it, and it's no different than the Stanley Cup playoffs. They've seen what it looks like, and that's where they want to get to. They understand, okay, man, there's another level here, and they've got to get to it. So it's been fantastic for their development and a great opportunity for them.
Those same guys have been asked to be leaders throughout this camp. What do you look for from that perspective? What do you want that to look like?
Well, and that's exactly, we want the older guys taking care of the younger guys, and sometimes the older guy is maybe a first time guy, and the younger guy has been here before, but just that leadership to know what it's all about and what you have to do. It's tough because it is still summer, it's off season, but you're expecting the players to have that on ice component, and that's not always the easiest thing, and to make sure they're getting the guidance that, hey, we got to get some rest here. It's nice, to Vegas is wonderful. It's good to be around the pool a little bit, but a little bit. You have to make sure you're looking after yourself. It's easy to be distracted. We keep the guys busy during the day, but they still have to look after themselves, and that's part of learning how to be a pro.
From a evaluation point of view, how deep do you guys get into keeping notes and watching what the players do and how they execute things?
Well, I think you have to, the first thing for me that I do is I try to evaluate every player to themselves. So you're not trying to evaluate them to the group, because there's just so many variables that don't allow that to be consistent or fair. So your guys that were here last year, I have a different expectation for them. I expect them to be able to take a step and show more, where maybe last year they were just part of the group. Now I should be able to, they should maybe come to me a little bit. I don't have to look for them. They're going to stand out in a scrimmage or even a practice. Some first-year guys, it can be a little bit overwhelming, and then to see how they handle it from the start of the week to the end of the week. So you're, to me, evaluating everybody on their own, to themselves, and then just see what kind of steps they take.
Looking at the entire evaluating group that you guys have this week, of course, you work so hard with the Savannah Ghost Pirates of the ECHL as well. There are players here who know they're going back to college next year, back to juniors next year, wherever the plan has them. There are also guys here who are fighting for contracts. As we saw this past season, some of those players, that opportunity is going to come in Savannah. How important is it to have Rick Bennett here this week as well, just as an evaluative figure to say, hey, I recognize this guy. This might be someone who can help me?
Well, it's important for the organization. For George McPhee and Kelly McCrimmon, we want to develop our people, not just our players, our people as well. So to have that whole Savannah crew here, whether it's, the athletic training staff, the equipment staff, we want to get a feel for them. We want them to get a feel for us, and we want them to be able to have that opportunity to develop. No different than Ryan Craig. Ryan Craig is the perfect example of, us being involved, or the Golden Knights being involved in his complete development as a coach, and now he's ready to take that step as head coach. And it's great when you can be involved in the succession plan, and we're hoping that for everybody, within our groups and within our teams.
What excites you most about what lies ahead for Henderson's next season?
Well, I think looking at it, as we go and everybody grows, we get a better opportunity to see, what it looks like. And the winning is such a big component of development. And it was rewarding for Henderson this year to see all the players that did get called up and the success that they had for the Golden Knights, and everybody was a part of that. So every win that we got, whether it was Yuri Patera or Pavel Dorofeyev or the D-men, all three that stepped in, Miramanov and Pahal and Korzak, everybody made a difference in their own way. And when you look at how close it was at the end, they contributed. But at the same time, we didn't have the success with a number of wins with Henderson, and we want to get our feet back on the ground with that a little bit better. We want to be a little deeper if we can be. We're trying to go through that this week with free agency to make sure we add to that. And quite frankly, we just got to be more competitive and hopefully contending. Where last year I think we had times when we got good traction, but there's times when we fell back. So we want to be more consistent there for sure.
You did add a couple of pieces this week to the Henderson Silver Knights in that fold. Adam Cracknell being one of them. In the same age group as Ryan Craig. And Ryan sees a lot of himself in Adam.
Yeah, and Adam's a lifer. He's played in he had his time in the NHL, and now he's back in the American League. He loves his life there. He's a player that understands his role, understands what he needs to do, and I think he's going to be really good for our young guys. And I thought last year with our group that we're a younger team. We've got great prospects, but they're young. And sometimes in the American League, you can get chased out of games a little bit. just because older, stronger guys can do that. And I think guys like Adam Cracknell are going to help our young guys with that. And I think for us, those types of components are organizational guys that can do nothing but help our younger group and give them the opportunity that they need to get the space and to make sure that they can play the way they need to play.
You're very formal today with us. You're not jabbing and.
Well, no, I do that all off air. I'm intimidated by the talent, is what I am.
That's usually
That's why your chair doesn't work.
Yeah. The first thing I come in, you sit me on the ground, and then you expect me to have my A game. Like, come on, I'm recovering.
Putting you on your back foot. The idea now to have these players go back to their teams if they're going to college or junior. What kind of message and how does that process work from today to the fall?
Well, and I think the biggest thing is we've got to know them as, a little better as players and a lot better as people. So, I think we want to see now we've got an idea where they're at, and we can look at our interest and do we cross paths with these players again. Some of them we will for sure because they're draft picks, and others are still free agents, and we're still looking for that next step of improvement and development to be back again. So, I think it gets us off on the right start with the players that we wanted to be here, and everybody that we have here that Will's identified and his group has identified are here for a reason. So now, we moving back, we're going to, kind of see you that they hopefully, and we're expecting they're going to take a step because of the development opportunity that they've had this week.
You mentioned getting to know them as people. What do you notice about the connection that Will Nickel builds with these prospects, and what impact does that have on the organization?
Well, I think it's, I love the way we do it in that Will is a part of their development, not only when they're with their junior or college team, but he also is still involved with them when they're with us for their first year or two, depending on what they need. And I think that's important, that they have that support. Will looks at it just from a prospect point of view, like what kind of opportunities he's getting and what can he do to maybe do more. But Will is such a personable guy. He cares so much about them as people, and he shows them that he does care about them first and foremost, and that's really important for the prospect, but also important for the organization.
He'll be joining us next intermission, but I think it's about time for period 2. So, Tim, we will let you get back to it.
Thank you, and get his chair fixed. Can you guys get his chair fixed?
We could try to do that.
Thanks for testing it out for us.
Thanks to Tim Speltz for spending the first intermission of this scrimmage with us today. It's a 1-0 game after one period. We're halfway to the goals that we got in the first scrimmage, so we're riding high on that side of it.
There you go. We're building our game throughout.
We've got 3 goaltenders in the building today with Isaiah Seville and Carl Lindbaum and Jesper Wickman. I just got a shot from Tim Speltz. The players come out. And by the way, the camp today, they're not using, and this is, I like the way organizations structure this. They're not using the VGK room. That's reserved for National Hockey League players.
Earned.
So you don't come to development camp and go in and use that. They have access to the gym, every other part of the facility, but the actual dressing room is reserved for National Hockey League players. They're in the UNLV dressing room for their club team, and all players are in that room. And you're squeezed in a little bit, but you're playing the scrimmage today, and then you go back and you all sit in the same room and build some camaraderie and doesn't let things get awkward at all.
Well, like you said, that the NHL room is for the NHL players. If you think that messaging doesn't work effectively, remember back to last fall when Paul Cotter saw his nameplate in the big room, and that was a big deal for him, and he'd been in the organization for several years. So that messaging is it's not psychiatric head games. It really is a truthful thing to earn that players appreciate when they get that.
Brendan Brisson lining up for the face-off alongside Alex Svetlikov. And underway here in the second period. Do you want to call any of this action? How are you feeling? You don't have to, Brian McCormick.
See how many eyes I can utilize at once. Oh, that's Lucas Cormier with a headman pass. I figured out, I believe what my mistake was, 62 white. The numerical error on our sheet, I believe, is Alex Svetlikov. So I have that figured out on my sheet.
Just completed his first full season with the Savannah Ghost Pirates.
As did Patrick Gay, so they're going head-to-head, both offensive leaders for the Savannah squad. Patrick Gay, ECHL All-Star honors in his rookie season.
See a lot of offensive talent in his game.
A lot of smarts, and he's spent this summer, as you would expect, in the gym, on the ice. He's going to be hanging out for a couple extra weeks with Jeff Conkle, who's the strength coach for the Henderson Silver Knights. We've heard a lot of players mention his name this week. I know Daniel Chayka was mentioning it to you earlier this week as well, Ashley. He's got a program for each and every one of them, and they stick to it.
Darren and I were talking to Jackson Hallum a couple days ago. Fast as can be. Kid is so fast, but he's trying to put on weight, has put on weight and muscle since this camp last year, and we were talking to him about what that looks like, what he has to eat. He said a lot of Chipotle. A lot of Chipotle. Double steak bowls, double steak burritos, whatever it is.
So it gets a little
double
expensive
steak, a lot of
sometimes.
protein. It gets a little expensive, but you got to do what you got to do on your path to the National Hockey League, right?
I'm eating double steaks too, but I didn't tell my wife I was trying to get stronger. It's interesting, though, when Will was talking to us about Jackson Hallum, who has been at the University of Michigan, and his speed is so significant. That's always been known, but they're so impressed that they've been trying to teach him how to use it.
Yep.
It's not 100 miles an hour all the time. It's situational. It's hitting your spots, like a running back hitting the hole when it opens. Then they say he's gotten so much smarter at utilizing his speed that he's not out of control. It's purposeful and it's precise.
And they said they've had him watch Chandler Stevenson to watch how to utilize the speed properly.
Imagine that.
Connor McDavid was a player that had to adjust from when he came into the league, too. And we got the world's best player, but he was 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, if you're leading the rush, that's great. If you're ahead of the play all the time, then it's
but
probably not that different than being behind it.
Being 80 and being able to turn on an extra 20 is sometimes more effective than going all out all the time.
Yeah. So how else can you get that criticism? Darren, you're just putting up too much weight in the gym.
Yeah.
The plates can't keep up with you.
You've heard that?
Yes. From Shane Knighty.
Bench pressing 250.
Spotting.
Nothing wrong with that. Leg day. I'll eventually get around to the leg day.
Good chance off the rush for Ryder Donovan. And, of course, his story has been well known, Darren and Ashley, over the last couple of years. And he's head to St. Thomas this season. And that's a player that Will Nickel just say he's proud of him and how he's managed the challenges.
Darren, we hope to see a very great feature that you did with him yesterday, but would love to just kind of hear your synopsis of Ryder Donovan and the journey he's been on, particularly in this last calendar year after what was a really, really good camp for him last year.
Yeah, so at this time a year ago, he was on top of the world. Loved where he was, loved where his game was, his place in the hockey world. And then he went back to school and just fell into a bad spot. Anxiety, like with so many people of us, can take hold and turn thoughts that normally wouldn't mean anything and make you anxious and question your game. And he just lost his zeal for the game and actually stepped back and sat out last year. Sat out the entire season, went back to Minnesota, and didn't know where he was going to be. This is a draft pick of the Vegas Golden Knights. And around Thanksgiving, rediscovered his enthusiasm and talked to Will Nickel, in fact, and said, let's see what we can do. And now he's going to go to St. Thomas, not a school that has a long history in Division I hockey, but is progressing, and I think it's a great fit for him. And he's very honest about what he went through a year ago, and you see why people think the world of him. But you also see there's a guy with a year ago had everything going for him, and on the inside still had those challenges, and it took a while to get through those, and the people that stood by him, he's very grateful for.
And extremely brave of him to want to share that story.
Said he was doing a lot of hunting and fishing and skating by himself. And he said, whether I have a good practice or a bad practice here, I'm so grateful for just being out practicing and being part of this group as opposed to where I was a year ago.
That's another big part of this week. Tim Speltz, talked about how they do more than just stuff on the ice. They've kept these players very busy. They've had cooking classes. They went to a baseball game. They, for 4th of July, were able to watch fireworks at Red Rock. They got some pool time in on the holiday, of course. Very important.
Ryder is 22. He's on the older side of this camp, but doesn't and some players in different organizations wouldn't be happy to be the oldest guy in the camp, and he just is loving this, and he's taken a leadership role with different people. He said there's a couple of guys that are probably tired of listening to him because he's been in their ear throughout, but he's at this camp with 18-year-olds, and he's really enjoying the opportunity to become a mentor to them. He did say his first shift back when it comes to this season in St. Thomas is going to be very emotional from the path that he's traveled, from sitting out an entire year. He admitted the players it's not unusual for players to miss a year, whether it's because of an injury to a hip or a knee. He's not treating it any different than that, just because it was between the years and battling the mental part of the game. He's following along on that same path and just saying, I missed a year, and I'm coming back, and I'm going to be rehabbing, and I've rehabbed just the same and trained just the same as anybody else who had a knee injury. Nice move there.
Give credit to the
Brisson.
hockey operations staff and Will Nickel and all those who were supportive of him as he found his way back as well.
So Will Nickel, when Ryder left school and when he made that decision in Vermont, he was going to be out a year. And nobody really knew whether he was going to be out forever. Like, it was in limbo.
Right.
Will Nickel never talked to him about hockey. Whenever they had conversations, it was about, what are you hunting? What are you fishing? What are you doing? Who are you hanging out with? What's been keeping you busy? Never ever talked about hockey. And it was Ryder that when they went out for lunch one day, who brought it up, and Raisin said, I've got the itch back, I'd like to go. And then Will Nickel went down the path of looking for different fits when it came to schools and getting a training program going, and he practiced with the local junior team and found his avenue on that side. But it was never about hockey with Will Nickel, the Director of Player Development with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Something I've talked about with Will before, and something he enjoys about his job. He told me, but before he got into hockey, he was a school teacher, and you can see it because there's a portion of his job that is hockey, but then there's a portion of his job that's really like guidance counselor and knowing when to push which button.
Yeah.
And the players sure light up when you ask them about him, any of them.
Well, that was the interesting part about the clinching night on the floor of T-Mobile Arena.
Yep.
When everybody's hoisting the cup and they've got their family members there. Will Nickel had a couple of moments with different, one with George McPhee, who he's been through with for a long time, going back to the Washington days. But some of these players, like a Nick Hague or a Zach Whitecloud, who Will has been with from the very start and was so tight with them and is so tight with them, even now with those players as Stanley Cup champions in the National Hockey League.
He was talking about his relationship with Nick Waugh as well. He said he may not have started out here, but he has a close relationship with Nick Waugh, and actually said that throughout the week they have shown Nick Waugh's wall work and board work to these guys as an example. So he was saying, I can't wait to see Wazzy again in the fall and be able to say, hey, I've been showing all these guys your work, and you're setting a good example for them and what the kind of game we want them to play. And obviously there's the superstars on the team that you expect maybe highlights to be shown of, but even things like that go a long way for a guy like Nick Waugh, I'm sure.
And Nick Waugh will lead the team out with the Stanley Cup tour.
Curious to see what he will do.
That will be a story when everybody gets back together at training camp about the different days with the Stanley Cup. I've heard a couple of different plans and approaches by people. Jonathan Marchessault is like, he's rolling out the red carpet. Other players are going to be a little bit more low key.
I think the Stanley Cup is going to see a lot of golf courses this summer. I have a feeling. I have a hunch.
No bowling alleys?
It's funny, too, that as we caught up with Bruce Cassidy early in the week, mostly about this camp, but you can't help but ask him, about what lies ahead for the summer for him as well. And he's still just beaming from all of it, isn't he?
He was so honest about wanting his name on the Stanley Cup. Like that dream of having your name on the Stanley Cup.
And for the first time, the names will be on the cup
before the tour. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
No, it seems like a pretty obvious thing.
It makes you wonder why, because everyone wants their photo, pointing to the name.
Yeah, but it's never happened. The days with the Stanley Cup tour during the course of the summer has always started immediately. And I talked to a couple of people from the Hockey Hall of Fame about this, because it does seem to be so obvious that you would get it engraved and then have the tour, and you can show your family, who may never see it again, your name on the cup. Why this is the first time, and they don't really know why, other than people were so excited to get the tour started. But they hope that this is going to be the start of a new tradition, that you, in the immediate aftermath of the championship, the team gets it for 7 days, then it goes to the awards and the draft, and they're hoping that it will be engraved, and then the tour starts going forward. So the Vegas Golden Knights starting potentially a new tradition with the Stanley Cup.
Maybe it's as simple as the engraver. Like, hey, we need it next week. What?
Yeah.
You have any idea how many practice runs I do before I hand this thing back to you guys? Well,
it takes about 4 days to engrave it, too.
We have our first power play actually of the day, I believe. Could be wrong. I wouldn't lie to you, but it looks like power play for Team White.
Mm-hmm.
Good play by Marek Hayduk to get it down. Marek Hayduk is the son of Milan Hayduk, still draft eligible and heading back to Harvard. A couple of non-VGK direct NHL ties at camp this week. Marek Hayduk and then Ty Cheveldayoff, who's the cousin of Winnipeg Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff.
Kevin was a first-round pick of the New York Islanders back in the day, out of the Brandon Wheat Kings.
You mentioned Harvard. There's a Princeton as well. Brendan Gorman. Well, Nickel made the joke earlier. They're bringing up the GPA of the development camp this year.
When in doubt, go smart.
Couple Ivy League schools. I wouldn't last a day. I know that much.
No, yeah, me neither. There's nobody from SUNY Geneseo at the Vegas Golden Knights development camp.
Number 87, David Silly, with some nifty stick work right in the middle of your screen there, if you're wondering which player that is. He's a free agent.
Going to Wisconsin.
Badgers going
Speaking
through transition with their organization, their school.
Here's Daniel Chayko at the face-off window. He, I think, is another interesting player for this coming year. Second-round pick in 2021. Spent the whole year last year with the Silver Knights, and I think it was just so easy to forget. Played a vast majority of the games, but just how young he was and how much learning there is to do. And it's I feel like we saw it last year during rookie camp with Leighton Ahak. You're like, okay, he looks young during AHL games. Then you put him against guys who are his age, and he looks more mature, more sure of himself. And it was, I know that Tim Speltz said, as the year went on, you could see him get more confident, more comfortable in his own skin. Interesting to see what year 2 in the AHL looks like for Daniel Chayka, because you assume it's going to come with added responsibility.
I was told early in the camp he was kind of bragging to the young guys like, hey, I'm a Vegas local now. I can show you the ropes. I know how things work around here.
I keep on asking him if he wants to go to lunch or something. He says he's not around. He's been lying to me.
I've heard he's going to be around all summer, except maybe going to Florida for a little bit. So I think he might just be giving you the cold shoulder there, Brian.
It's well earned.
You have to search long and hard in this area to get anything cold. Well, not where some of the places we go to, but it is hot out there right now.
Oh, yeah. Just hang out at America First Center.
You get used to that?
It's practice. I just keep reciting it over and over. But the day the announcement was made of the name change, America First Center is now the name of the Silver Knights practice facility on Water Street in Henderson. I had Jeff Conkle, the strength coach, text me like an hour and a half later, and he was like, hey, we've got ice at the America First Center today. Come on down and skate. I was like, I love how quickly you're getting acclimated to it. It's just good branding.
How is your game?
Yeah.
That was my game?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't go that day.
No.
No, I'm like the Stanley Cup engraver. I need a month of practice before I show you the real thing.
How was the first complete season at the Dollar Loan Center, Brian?
Oh, it still feels like a shiny new toy every single day. And, that was one of the fun things of development camp is the players get to go on a tour of T-Mobile, and they come and take a tour of the Dollar Loan Center as well. And, as we were talking about him earlier, who's the most expressive person in the room who always is the life of the party? It's Joe Fleming. And Joe Fleming had 20 questions. How many people fit in here? Where do we go around here? He was a good student, but it was fun to see the looks on faces of some of these players who, play in some legitimate junior barns or, come from Division I colleges. They're not coming from shacks that they play their home games in now, but they look around like, well, this is a pretty cool place to call home every day, and that's how it felt all season long. And, especially for what was, again, a tough season in the standings for the Silver Knights, that was a building that was just about full every day from March onwards, so...
And it's something that not every team can say, that during this camp they're able to show these players exactly where they will play, exactly where they could live. The benefits of having the American Hockey League Henderson Silver Knights so closely tied to the Vegas Golden Knights, both in proximity and the coaching staffs, whatever it might be.
Even Ryan Craig, he can give that lesson as good as anyone.
Yeah.
We always say, hey, if you get called up, it's the easiest call up of your life. For Ryan Craig, he got a new job.
Yeah.
He said the only thing that's changing is my commute.
And even that's not bad compared to a lot of places.
It is funny when you hear people in Summerlin say, I don't want to drive all the way to Henderson. It's between 20 and 30 minutes max. Most big cities, you can't get anywhere for less than 20 or 30 minutes.
Ask the guys who have to get from Ontario to Los Angeles in an afternoon. It sounds like it should be easy. It's not. Jaden Lee's had a couple of dangles coming down from the right point. Just won a national championship at Quinnipiac.
The quickest championship overtime goal ever in that wrap-up game. Did it go 10 seconds?
I don't think it went 10 seconds. I don't think it did. And literally just, they probably said, if we don't do this quickly, we're going to get bumped onto, ESPN News. We got to knock this out on prime time.
Will Nickel gave him a lot of praise this morning. Took it as far to say he does everything right as a defenseman. That's pretty big praise. He talked about, not the biggest guy in the world, but really uses his feet for not being a big man, finds himself in the right places at the right times.
And, that's one of the impressive things when you talk about Jaden Lee. We heard similar Robbie from Delorme. There's a few players that are here in a free agent capacity. Of course, they're not invited for no reason. But what's so interesting to me is over the course of a couple of days, how quickly they can make these evaluations.
Yeah.
You see him on the ice 2 or 3 times, you're like, okay, I know the model. I want this guy to have. From Delorme, for example, was someone they said, that could be an Alex Svetlikov type path. Looking at Simon Pinard, who's a free agent in this camp, says that might be a Patrick Gay kind of path. They quickly evaluate and know, okay, this is what we can figure out from this guy. And again, like you said, there's probably no better example from Joe Fleming, who within the span of a couple of weeks was going to Northeastern, instead went to Sherbrooke of the Quebec Major League and has an NHL contract to show for it. These things happen fast.
It's an impressive fine line that they walk in the evaluation process too, because they're able to see guys and, realize that they might have a similar path to another player, but like Tim Speltz was saying, they're not necessarily comparing guy to guy. They're comparing the guys to where they were themselves a year ago.
Brendan Brisson out for Team Red, number 24.
That's been Brisson, Gay, who played a little bit together last year, again, as things are being discovered at the end of the year, power play opportunities and whatnot. But they also have Matthias Sapovalov on that line, too, centering that line, second rounder from last season. And actually, when we were talking to Will, one of the things they were so pleased about with him, all right, so year after draft, what did he do last year in Saginaw? And not only did they say, okay, the skating got better, but it seemed like what they were most pleased with is that he's just so defensively steady and stable, and the best example of what they saw of that was at the World Juniors.
Yeah, said he was not only playing with top-line talent, but facing top-line talent, and really good on both sides of the puck.
And not a bad wrist shot either. Matthias Sapovalov getting Team Red on the board. Look at that, we just summon it.
It's amazing.
That's the second time. Second time.
The influence that you have on the universe.
That can't be it, Dan. I tell people the broadcaster jinx can't count in July. There has to be a time of year where I'm allowed to say what I'm thinking. But I'll take credit. Matthias Sapovalov had 56 points in 61 games last season in Saginaw, too. So as we rave about the defensive side, he's putting up points and growing and young, too. He's going to be back at the World Juniors this year as well.
Interesting group between Patrick A., Sapovalov, and Brisson with that line, and the varied journeys that they've had. Brisson has been around the highest of high levels of the game throughout. Sapovalov, now a high draft pick, but a Euro that playing in the Canadian Hockey League, and Patrick A. now trying to become a full-time American Hockey Leaguer after splitting some time with Savannah.
And we heard this last year. Patrick Gay was drafted last year and older in the draft. He was just about to turn 20. Nice stretch pass. That's Svetlikov who has it knocked off his stick. But for Patrick Gay, older, and he had an opportunity. He could have gone back for another year in Charlottetown in juniors, but talking to the VGK staff, they said, I don't know if there's anything more to learn in Charlottetown. It's a good time to go pro. And he signed an AHL deal knowing he was going to predominantly be in Savannah, or at least to start. Just think about a young player and a player who is top 5 in scoring in juniors gets drafted. That's a lot of trust to say, okay, I'm going to choose the ECHL as next, but trusted the process, trusted Rick Bennett, and it was a great decision for him.
Looking forward to the evolution of that relationship, having your own ECHL team for the Vegas Golden Knights, and having that 3-tier level where you have 3 teams that are dedicated, much like European football, the way that you work it within the organization. And that can only grow beneficially as we go along year 2 of Savannah and on.
And Savannah, I think they had over 30 sellouts or something like that last year in their first season. But, it's a superficial reason. But aside from the development element of it, and again, whether it's Patrick Gay, Daniel D'Amato, a lot of players played significant time in Savannah last year. But when you ask them, well, how is it when you go down there? And they said, we love it. It's an amazing town. The fans are great. It's a really fun town to be young and playing hockey. And that means something, too, when a player, when you're sending him to Savannah for his own good to work on his game, that's not difficult news to deliver when you're sending a guy down there to work with Rick Bennett and staff as we're under a minute to play in period 2.
It's been fun to watch those guys who spent last season in Savannah together, too, walking around the halls, chirping each other. I was talking to Alex Svetlikov yesterday, asking how the cooking class went and who's the best, who's the worst. He's like, well, I don't know about the class, but Daniel D'Amato he's got to be the worst cook. He said, tried to trust him to make breakfast before it didn't work. They lived in the same apartment complex last season, so it's been fun to, just see that camaraderie between them. And then even the guys who it is their first camp, just to watch them find their way and start to cling to other players. It's really cool.
I think the cooking class would stress me out more than anything else. The scrimmages, the practices, I mean, they have a general idea of what I can do. That's why they brought me here. But you burn down in the kitchen, you get a reputation.
You forget how young some of the players are as well, and why that cooking class is so necessary, because when you ask a lot of them, who maybe just spent their first year pro, what the biggest difference is, two things. The schedule is one, and having to cook for yourself and clean and take care of all those things yourself is the other, because some of them have lived with billet families in the past or with their own families, whatever it might be. So the little things that you don't realize make a big difference that actually make a big difference. So cool that they get to learn those things while they're here. I could probably use some of those nutrition lessons as well. I should have been sitting in on some of those.
Organizationally wide, a cooking class wouldn't be a bad idea.
No, we should all sit in on that.
I can make cereal.
Second period
Milk
is over.
first or cereal first?
Oh, my daughter asked me that the other day, and I couldn't believe that came out of somebody from my family, that was even a question.
So what's the answer?
Well, you put it in the cereal.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
For sure.
No milk.
You
What?
put in milk first?
I don't use milk at all.
Only dry?
That's right. I give my teeth and gums something
Do
to
you
fight
put
against.
it in a
Shards of
bowl?
frosted flakes building stronger character.
I will say this, that, going no milk at all, just straight cereal, is better than putting milk in and then
But
the cereal.
that's for like a snack. That can't be like your bread. That's
No, 'cause
like
the milk puts you
that's
on
like
a
sitting
timer
on the
before it
couch,
gets soggy.
grab the cereal box, stick your hand
I like
in
to take
there.
my time.
Will Nickel has approached at a very interesting time as we're talking.
The cereal debate.
Talking about
I can't hear you guys
Okay,
great.
okay. It's
There
probably
we go. There
that's
we go.
probably for
Okay.
the best, Will.
No,
Probably for
that's
the
good.
best.
It's
Just
good.
so you know,
Earmuffs.
Brian McCormack put that chair down lower.
Yeah,
and
I
he
think
made
I'm a
sure.
stand. He wanted to make sure he was way above
Yeah,
me.
he did the
know how
same
he
thing
is.
with Tim Speltz. It's an
Yeah.
intimidation
It
tactic.
is. Yeah.
It's
That,
an inferiority complex. Is
I've
what it
worked
is.
with him long enough. I know.
How's this?
How are you guys
camp-
doing?
We're doing great.
Having too much fun.
Are you?
We love hanging out with you, by the way.
No, we love hanging out.
Will Nickel,
I love hanging out with you guys.
Director of Player Development. What's this week been like compared to other years?
Well, it's always nice when you start the week off, and I always feel like the draft and dev camp is the start of the season. It's always nice to start off as Stanley Cup champion. We haven't experienced that, so that's really special. But what we do and how we approach the week doesn't change, and we are starting a new season. So we're one of 32 teams now that want to win the Stanley Cup next June, and it starts, with Bobby Lowe's and his staff. At the draft, they did an excellent job, and it carries into development camp, and it's been a really fun week. Krim says it best. The guys that have been here before, it gives us kind of a benchmark to see their growth, and the guys where it's their first time through, it gives them a real education of what it means to be a member of our organization.
Tim Speltz said, "This is your baby."
No, we all do it together. So he's just being kind. But it's a busy week, but it's a fun. For me, in terms of work, it's my favorite week because you guys know the relationships that I am able to build with the kids. So you get to see all of them, for the whole week and spend some time with them. So it's fun.
Well, yeah, so even if you don't particularly consider this to be your baby and your baby alone, there has to be a proud papa feeling because not only are they all these guys you work with together in front of you, but I think if we were to deal with 2 or 3 guys going around the country, tracking them throughout the season, it would be a lot to handle. But you go around the country, around the globe with all of these guys.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun to see the fruit of that labor throughout the past calendar year on display.
It's fun for me to see the kids see their game grow and get better. It's no different like, when we were talking, well, the two of us, Darren got there right at the end.
When he was ready.
But when the rest of us were working hard this
I was
morning.
hanging out with other people.
Yeah, it's fun to see, like, I don't want to say the end because they've got a long career, but it's fun to see them once they get to Vegas. Like we were talking about Hager and Whitey, and Nick Hag was our first draft class. He was our first development camp. Zach Whitecloud, our first college free agent that we've ever signed, and I believe our second dev camp. And now to see them as a member and a big member, of our team, that's fun as well too. And just to see their growth, whether it's them or whether it's, someone like Jackson Hallum. This is our 3rd year that we just got done working together. First year he's in high school, 2nd year USHL, now just got done in Michigan, and to see the growth that he's made. So.
Darren and I were reflecting on Game 5 on the ice and seeing you down there.
Yeah.
How would you describe what the feeling was like watching guys like Nick Hague, like Zach Whitecloud, hoist the cup? And not only that, but as you said, they played such a big role. How would you describe just that feeling for yourself?
I don't know if I've cried so easily since my dad passed just over 4 years ago, right? And so when something like that happens, obviously the emotions are just near the surface. And I was like, I would get a text message or something, like my godson sent me this text message. It was so nice. And I was on the plane, I was reading it, and I'm crying. And then my wife said, well, what did Anthony send you? And I couldn't get through 2 words, and you're crying. And it's because, for me, it's all of that. It's also, I think of George, I think of Kelly, I think of Bill Foley. I mean, that's really the starting point, and people thought he was crazy, you know, with thinking Vegas could go here. But I laughed on the NHL when they said, yeah, George was a GM of Washington for 17 years and with Vegas for 6. It's like, no. It's 7 years. We've had a team for 6, but that first year especially, I don't want to speak for those people, but for me was maybe the hardest year ever in terms of the work and everything that went into it. So I thought about George, I thought about Kelly and everybody, Vaughn Karp and Bobby Lowe's and the roads we've all traveled, Tim Speltz to get here, and obviously the players, right, that I've had the connection with. And for me, it's just, you guys know me well enough where it's just like the emotions were incredible. Yeah.
We spent some time talking about Ryder Donovan during this scrimmage, who I got to spend some time with. Thank you very much yesterday, and we'll bring you that in the VGK social channels. But just give us some of the backstory on Ryder's journey.
Well, you guys have been watching the game, and so from the hockey, it's actually amazing because he hasn't had like a formal practice or game since this camp last summer. So he's done all of this. When I say on his own, you know, I've talked to you about Tony Granato and the Badger staff, how they helped him get back into school. Their Vermont coach let us know, you know, that he was taking a leave of absence. But in terms of the on ice, he's had to do a lot of this on his own, right? And he's even better today. Like, he's been dominant at times today. So I'm really proud of him on the hockey side. He's a special story. You know it. You've talked to him. I'm really proud of him on a lot of fronts. The meetings yesterday went great with all the kids. The one with Ryder, it got emotional in a good way, both from his end and my end, just because of his journey. And I'm proud that he's willing to talk about it. He wants to help other people, especially the younger kids, because, you know, the things that he has had to deal with, for some reason still aren't talked about openly in our society. And so good for him for wanting to talk about those things. And, you know, as a human being, he's in such a great place, and I just couldn't be happier for him and prouder of him for everything that he's traveled through. And now he's coming out on the other side, and he talked about now it's almost like, you know, his eyes are just so alive, and he's got this whole new rebirth for the love of the game. So
anxiousness, anxiety, it's part of all of us, but it can really affect young people, and especially in the pressure-packed area of NCAA or professional sports. How do you must have to deal with and talk to these prospects and different players a lot.
He's not the first one that I've had to talk to about it, and obviously I won't talk about other people, but he's talked to you guys openly, so I know he's comfortable talking about it. But anxiety is a very real thing, and I feel like it's even more so in the younger generation, and I don't know if COVID has made that the way it is or not, but, you know, if you know anyone that you're close to that has anxiety and or depression, it's a very real thing. So I've talked to you about my learning disability, right? Yeah. And that's how I equate it. Like, a learning disability isn't something that you can see, right? But if you have a learning disability, it's very real. And I think that's how I describe anxiety to a lot of people. You don't have a cast on, so you can't see it. That doesn't mean that doesn't impact your everyday life. And I think what you have to do is you just have to find the right tools out there to help you make this a part of your life, and so you can have a really good everyday life. So,
you know, I think it's interesting, Will. Ryder's example is one. You look at Artur Cholach, who's from Ukraine, and of course the challenges happening in Ukraine and Russia. For all of these players, real life happens.
Yes.
And different scales and varying degrees of challenge, but these challenges happen. They need to deal with those challenges in their personal life while also trying to channel that towards becoming a better person, better player,
Yep.
and better prospect. And that's all part of what you're managing as well.
Yeah, so and you guys have heard me talk about it. So it's like a classroom. So I got we got a new classroom now. We got David Edstrom in this class. So that, this is the start of the new school year for me. And if you're a good teacher, you got to get to know your students and what's their strengths, how do they learn. But if you're a good teacher, you want them to ace the test, right? You can't give them the answers, but you want them to succeed. At least I did. So everybody's got a different thing that they could be dealing with, and that's the reality. Like, these are human beings, right? I think people sometimes forget about that, especially when they get out to the big stage. These people, when they get here, they're dads, their husbands, their sons, their brothers. Those are all real life things that if you've been an athlete, which all of us have at some level, not at the pro level, but at some level, of course those are going to creep into your game. And so that's a big part of my job, is to get to know each player and maybe what they're going through, at a particular time. And I always say that the most important time for me to be with the kid is when they're struggling. Like, when things are going well, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be there, but when they're struggling, either on the ice, off the ice, I feel like that's when they need a little bit more, player development staff around to help them get through that. Because if they can get through it, and you're seeing it with Ryder Donovan, all of a sudden, it's almost like this light at the end of the tunnel, and they're like, okay, and they're looking back, and that's why I went through that, and what's ahead looks so bright. So.
Speaking of what's ahead, this is the last scrimmage, and then this year's development camp will be over. It flew by. What's next for you? What's next for the players?
So for me, it's, I told you guys off camera, is go home and see Elise and spend some time with her. She's been a champ, and all of us who know, whether it's a boyfriend or a wife, this industry, it's not 9 to 5, and it's not always easy. And I'm a rink rat. I know that. I don't want to speak for you guys. So it's not always hard on me, when you're away, but it's hard on your wife. And if you have kids, your kids and all that. So I'm going to go back and spend some time with Elise. Trying to do a lot with hockey, just try to kind of hit the reset so I'm ready for training camp. In terms of the players, they're going to go home. They're going to take a lot of the information here from our exit meetings and then their meetings with Jeff Conkle. And then they're going to have the rest of the summer to apply all those things. And whether they're going back to college, junior, or they're coming here, get ready for their season this fall.
What are those meetings like? Those individual?
They're great.
meetings?
Yeah, for me, it's direct. You guys know how I am. Excuse me. My voice never gets louder than this, but, I'll be very direct with the player in a positive way. And I always refer to them as teaching points. And here's what you need to do to get better, because otherwise, what are we doing? That's what I'll say to them. So we all have to get better. I ask them for feedback. So the graduating class, if you will, like Briss, Corms, Chikes, I said, just take some time, and then this fall, let me know what I can do better, to help the next group coming up, because I believe in that too, because all of us can get better. So there's that feedback. And then I just asked them about the week and how it's been for them. And if it's their first time through, what do you think of the facility? Like, all that stuff. So, yeah.
We've been talking about Ryan Craig a little bit today. Is it cool to see him this week in a bit of a different capacity?
It's awesome. Yeah, I'm so happy for him. I said this when I got asked questions the other day. If you know him, he's a tremendous coach. He's an even better human being. He's a great leader. And I think he's just going to knock it out of the park. I really do. Yeah, I'm so excited for him. And it's been fun because although I've worked with him at these camps, he hasn't been in this role, right? So with Turk, you had Turk and Rocky, right? And then with Pete, you had Pete and Manny, and now it's Butch and Krager, right? Those are the two head coaches. So it's been fun to see him in that head coaching role for this camp. Yeah.
Can't let you go without finding out what you're planning when you do get your day with the Stanley Cup.
So I got to go through that a little bit with Elise. We've got a few ideas. We're going to have some quiet time. First, just the two of us and our Great Dane, of course. I think we're going to have him.
What's the Dane's?
Truman. We're going to let Truman drink out of the cup.
Yeah?
Not beer, just water.
Truman won't even have.
He won't have to bend down.
No.
He's up to here. Yeah.
Throw some
So he'll
treats
just-
in there for him, at least something other than water.
So
Come
I
on.
want them to have some quiet time with it. Then we'll have my mom, her parents, her brother, and his family, and we'll slowly open it up to dear friends. And we're gonna do that for a bit, and then my buddy has got a beautiful cottage, basically in Madison. It's on a farm, 23 acres. And I just don't want to forget anybody along the way. So I've got my first youth coach who, when I was 4, he's going to be coming.
What's his name?
That's so
Gene
cool.
Temple.
Wow.
Yeah, my high school coach is coming. I'm trying not to, I'm sure I will, but I'm trying not to forget anybody that helped me along the way. My favorite saying. And friends and family. So that'll be 300 of our closest friends. So that'll be fun.
You could use
Yeah.
a second day, it sounds like.
They're getting invited. I don't know if they'll all come. Yeah. So,
That'd be crazy not to come.
yeah.
And what's your motto?
Well, one of my favorite sayings is, and it's from a poem, but, I'm more concerned about the brothers on the road than the gifts at the end. And that's because that's how it's been for me. I've had some wonderful coaches and mentors along the way, and so that's what I try to do with the prospects. So,
Will, no
Awesome
one knows
stuff.
these guys better than you. We're tied at 1 in the third period. Team red or team white? What do you think?
shoot out.
There you go. Extend the week.
There's,
All right.
Is there a shootout either way? We should go ahead
No,
and get that.
I don't think
okay,
so. I don't
sometimes
think
okay.
so. No.
People are ready to get home,
Yeah,
understandably.
Yeah. So, thanks, you
Thanks,
guys.
Will.
Thank you,
Okay.
Will.
See ya. I like my gifts. That's where Will and I differentiate. I love my gifts. He's about the journey. I'm about the gifts. Could you not sit and talk to Will
All day.
I was going to say to you, the Will Nickel
I
podcast,
leave those
I would never miss
conversations
an
much
episode.
wiser than I
Yes.
enter them.
and
Yes.
and always positive.
Yes.
That felt like a pep talk, only we were talking about other people. Let's rock this third
Well,
period.
Remember, he said, "My voice never gets higher than this, but there's always a message." And that part about, hey, to D'Amato yesterday, part of being a leader,
Yep.
be a leader. That was a teaching moment that was direct, not over the top, but direct. Like, you're a leader here. Get your crew in line.
An absolute fountain of information.
Somebody has to be here.
Speaking of Daniel D'Amato, he's on the ice right now.
Brian, how long does it take you to learn a roster from scratch?
Not as long as you'd think. Well, depending if by learn a roster, you mean names and numbers.
Yeah.
Give me
Like something like this today, where you got the lines and the rosters 30 minutes before we came on the air.
a little longer than 30 minutes. Good finish there at the side of that. That's I believe that was Tuomas Hironen with the finish, if I'm not mistaken.
Too
Part
bad
of
we
the
don't have
draft class.
replays here. I looked at my
Yeah, he
computer
was-
and missed the goal.
He was
What
at the
did
side of the net, and it looks like Abram Weeb was at the side of the net, too. That one rattled around a little bit.
Well, and that's something Will told us this morning. He gets inside, gets to the net.
6th round draft choice last week in Nashville.
How was the draft in Nashville, Darren? We haven't done enough talking about that. Were you
Nobody
cutting a rug, as
nobody
they
was-
say?
Nobody was bored. Let me just say that.
Took
It
place
was-
in Nashville, Tennessee, for anyone who
What
doesn't
was
And
know.
entertaining all the bachelorette
Music
parties? Is that what
City.
you're hockey talks?
Yeah. Just showing people around. It was interesting. We got there Monday, but Will Nickel and the entire scouting staff was there earlier, and they actually had a day with the Stanley Cup, or a night with the Stanley Cup, a big dinner on the Sunday night, which was amazing, as the professional and the amateur scouting staffs with George McPhee and Callie McCrimmon got to have their own moment on Sunday at an establishment on Lower Broadway, which was amazing for them. Because if a player's around or the coaching staff's around, like, you always default to them because they're right in the middle of it. But for the scouting staff to have 5 hours with the Stanley Cup as part of their own team, that was unbelievable for them. And then Monday was the awards. And it was the first time that they've had the awards and the draft in the same city in this modern era. So that was neat to have the whole hockey world there with the nominees, and Tuesday was kind of the last chance for the scouting staff to really dial in and do some last-minute interviews. And then the draft on Wednesday and Thursday was they did a nice job. It was hot, it was warm, muggy, but only there's two places that could do the draft like that: Vegas and Nashville.
Vegas.
That can do it like that. We actually had Zach Whitecloud was there, and he's part of the new player inclusion committee, and he had the Stanley Cup out for a couple hours with us. He and I should really thank Zach. He wanted the Stanley Cup to be around some of the VGK staff for one last opportunity before it starts his tour, and I thought that was a pretty neat gesture by Zach.
Very kind of him. That's why he's such a great example. They use him as an example on and off the ice for all of these prospects.
You know, and he never. Here's a fun fact about Zach. He never fails to call you by your name, and I'm guilty of this. I'll see Zach. I'll say, "Hey, bud," or "Hey, pal," something like that.
I'm a serial offender myself.
But if you see him in passing at the facility or at T-Mobile, it's always, "Hi, Darren," and I think that's an incredible attribute that he's actually. I mean, there's 30 years difference between us, and he's taught me to try and use names. It's just that's a sign of respect that I will always take, and that he's taught me.
We're doing a lot of
Ashley?
learning, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for
the week's all
addressing me
about.
right now.
Tell you guys, when we were talking about the draft, it was a really good shift for Team White with Matthew Cataford, who was the third-round pick last week. And when we were talking about Tuomas Uronen, they said what a value pick. That the fact they got him in the 6th round. You learn in these development camps, after a few days here, they were happy when they got him, but after a few days here, they're like, how do we get him in the 6th round? You know, Cataford, Will was talking about just they love what is his 200-foot ability, but also how versatile he is. He can play both wings, he can play center, he can do whatever you want. And I feel like we've heard that a couple of times over the last couple of years. They find with their later round picks that they get versatility and they get discipline.
They also said he's very confident, but in a good way, and he's a sponge. He said he really, really wants to learn. He's asked a lot of questions this week. Thirst for knowledge, thirst to get better and learn more.
You'll speak to kids who have just been drafted at that event, and they a lot of times are just overwhelmed by the moment. Matthew Cataford was not. He was fun. He was overjoyed that he went to Vegas and very excited. But one of those the guys that you can sit and you're not going to ask more than 3 or 4 questions because the interview is going to be extensive enough. You're not going to have to pry anything out of him. He was a lot of fun to get to know in Nashville.
Speaking of just being overwhelmed in that situation, which you say he was not, which is great, but can we talk about the week it's been for those guys who were just drafted? Most of them went straight from Nashville to here. It's just so much to take in such a short time period. They have not had a second to breathe and really take it all in.
If you're a top pick, Ezra, for example, you take your gear to the draft, and then you go, because you're from overseas, you're going to go straight to a development camp and dive right in. And boy, and talking to his parents was a real treat. His dad's a former badminton player who met his mom at when they went to school at ASU together. He's from dad's from Denver, and he was trying out for the U.S. Olympic team, and all the events were in Europe. So he just settled in Sweden.
That was Jackson Hallum's speed.
There we go.
Sorry
it's
to
his
interrupt.
speed, but he said, we asked him earlier in the week, we know you have speed. What else do you want to showcase? And he said, skill.
That and so the speed backs off the defender, and then instead of trying to do the extra and beat them wide and take the net, he uses that great range of being in close and the defenseman as a slight screen and capitalizes on the shot.
That was a terrific release, short side on Isaiah Seville. Now we're tied again, and Will Nichols' shootout prediction looks possible. I don't know who's been standing out to you guys. I mean, everyone's having their strengths. On the one side for Team White, Ryder Donovan does not look like a guy who hasn't played. Wow. Was that Jackson Hallum again? I think it might have been. That was Jackson Hallum with a takeaway, and as he was falling down, nifty hands in tight. That was tremendous.
Important to note, he scored in the first scrimmage of the week, too.
All right, so as I'm saying, who's looked good? Jackson Hallum's looked good for about, well, he's looked good all day, but really good for 45 seconds. He's got 2. But I was going to say on the other side for Team Red, we talked how excited they were for Abram Weeb on the back end for Team Red, number 82. Especially for a guy that's, he looks bigger than his listed 6'2", but really mobile.
Jackson Hallum, player now at Michigan. That's basically an NHL team. When it comes to the program and the amount of exposure and how it's operated. So a development camp is not going to be too big for
The
Jackson
bright
Hallum.
lights.
Yeah.
Another guy, though, who wants to continue learning, apparently. I'm going to walk all over Brian.
I keep walking all over you guys. I'm sorry. That was Lucas Cormier saying Matthew Cataford. That was beautiful.
But Cormier was on for the Hallum shift.
Yeah.
And is on here. So he's +3 in the last 2.5 minutes.
I'm pretty sure, I apologize, folks, from working on the monitors. I believe it was Cormier who set up Cataford, but that was an awesome pass from right wing to left as Cataford was diving. And it's opened up a little bit in this third period.
They may have gotten that pep talk. Bob Lowe's wanted to score goals. Come on, guys. We need some goals in the third. Maybe that's what was being talked about.
We're going to start.
Sorry,
you're
trying to tell a story. I'm making sound effects over here. I'm sorry.
We're going to get texts from agents and players' parents saying, "Can you start talking about my connection?" Because everybody we seem to bring up instantly has an
no
impact.
kidding.
Say Darren Millard's had a strong afternoon. Watch out. It's actually
Austin
funny.
Swankler is a good story too.
Yeah.
Out of Bowling Green.
And an interesting story, too. We were hearing from Will earlier today that he played a full season in the OHL with the Erie Otters and then tried to go to Bowling Green, which would have ordinarily, going from major junior to college, is going to bring some problems. It's going to be a hard thing to navigate. He said he didn't have any problem at all. It might have been a clerical error in the office or whatever. But
Didn't have to sit out any games.
Didn't miss a game.
Yeah.
No, which has never happened before.
He should be teaching a class.
They've liked him this week as well.
Bowling Green, the alum of George McPhee. Another opportunity in front.
That pass across, I think, was from Vincent Borghese, another player that they really like. The one challenge he's overcoming in an NHL environment now that is a little more forgiving of it than the past, but he's 5'7", 5'7.5". But he does so much right on the puck that he's able to overcome that.
And competitive as can be. That was the quote we were told this morning. So he's a battler for sure.
A Northeastern D-man.
When you come to development camp, I was just talking to, looking at Silly, do you want number 87?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you want people looking at you. Even if it's
Looking,
the audacity to wear that, but they're looking at you.
When you get your number assignments and you get 87, are you happy or are you like, oh my goodness?
I remember when I was a kid, I was at a camp and there was a kid who had gold gloves. I was like, they look ridiculous. And my dad's like, well, everyone's looking at it. Now, in this camp, it wouldn't make much of a difference. But back in 2004, it was a big deal.
It's funny, when Vegas broke into the league and they had the white gloves, that was a big thing.
Yeah.
People took notice of that. Now, everybody's doing it. The gold helmets.
White gloves, chrome helmets. We just got to keep pushing that envelope.
Glow in the dark sweaters.
By next year,
Why
like, I really
not?
like the hockey pants with the Christmas lights embedded in. It's really, really flashy.
That'll be something to keep an eye on, too, on the subject of uniforms and the kit. The Winter Classic sweaters.
Oh,
Yes.
For
that's all. Yeah.
January 1st game, Vegas against Seattle. That will be something that will be unveiled.
And that's going to be a fun project, I think, for the creative team, because when you look at the Bostons and the Detroits and the Torontos, when you've got, 80, 90 years of heritage or more that you can kind of bounce off, that there is a throwback template to go off of, it's fun to see teams that are super young like Vegas and Seattle, like, okay, you're gonna imagine the vintage throwback yourself if that's the direction they go in. But
I think Seattle might have a Metropolitan tie.
That would be neat. That would be very neat.
But Vegas, that's a blank canvas.
Well, the Thunder jerseys in Henderson were popular last year.
They were.
That did well. And then Adam Cracknell's a former Las Vegas Wrangler, so we can ask his expertise. There are people in the building with Vegas vintage fashion, but not me.
Las Vegas Thunder night with that game in Henderson. That was great to connect with some of the names that we've known and heard about from the Thunder days.
And a reminder of just how many of them stick around. I know you talked to Jeff Sharples a lot that week. Pokey Reddick was around for that one. It was a nice reminder of how many people called Vegas home before it was the NHL market it is now.
Bob Strum, involved in the management.
That was I got to interview Bob between periods. I think I said hi, and then it was the next 5 minutes. Was
and you talked more than I thought.
Oh, it was great. Hey, hi, Bob. So how'd you like being with the Thunder? Well, Brian, and then I went and got a soda. It was
so Bob Strum.
So much fun.
Bob Strum coached Bob Lowe's, I believe, in Regina, in the Western Hockey League way back when. And now they're both in Vegas. Strum ran professional hockey here, and now Bob Lowe's part of the leader of the amateur side of the scouting department for the Vegas Golden Knights.
If I'm not mistaken, he said his favorite part of the draft was hanging out with Darren Millard. I believe there's video evidence.
That's because Bob and I go back a long time to our fantasy football league days.
So that'd be a heck of a game. If this goes into overtime and we need to extend our programming, we'll play 7 degrees of separation. Darren Millard.
Who's better at fantasy football?
Bob won it one year. He was his name. Team name was the Buffaloes.
I like it.
And Kelly McCrimmon was in that league. He was the Crim Reaper.
There's a snipe for Patrick Gay.
Every time I watch him, I come away liking him even more.
He scored last scrimmage as well, first scrimmage of the week. So,
not a lot of guys can stand out in a practice setting to my eye, but I noticed Patrick Gay, even just a regular practice that we watched at times this week.
Got a great release, great nose for the net. He's in the right place more often than not. But I think the release more than anything. And again, at a camp like this, I think you're going to find a lot of good stories. There's guys who have scraped and clawed and fought their way in. But, again, we mentioned Patrick Gay, who was drafted last summer. He didn't go into that season on a ton of draft radars. He had pretty ordinary numbers at most in his prior junior seasons, and then just absolutely blew up playing on a team with Lucas Cormier and with Jacob Brabanitz, and he was, if I remember correctly, I think he was second in the queue in goals and third in points or fourth in points, and just exploded. And he has not slowed down. There's a good puck movement here. Sapovalov looking for, pardon me, not Sapovalov, that was, I believe, Joe Palatichuk sneaking down. I have to ask now, Darren, it's still stuck in my mind, our fantasy football conversation. Is it fair for you to be in a fantasy football league with people who do management for a living? It feels like you're likely to get taken advantage of by people who do this every day.
Because Kelly McCrimmon won a couple of times. Bob Lowe's won one year. I do not believe Dreger was in that league. Darren Dreger from TSN, one of the great insiders.
Oh, he's on your level then.
Yeah. We were
Guys who build rosters for a living, though, it just doesn't seem like it's fair for you.
Thank you for supporting me on that.
I try to be, to help you out.
But then I came here and won our staff league.
Well,
which didn't go well for you.
No, but someone has to lose. I'm the perpetual rebuy. I take on all your bad contracts. That's what I'm here for.
Great crowds all week, too, here at City National Arena.
Always is. It's one of the great things about this rink, this market. It's always buzzing.
Like a little thing like stick and puck last week, just before I left for the draft. It was packed out there. Stick and puck in June in Vegas. The enthusiasm from the organization in the Stanley Cup.
Snipe for Carter Wilkie. Bob Lowe said he wanted to see offense on Thursday. He's getting it in the third period. That turned into that's a 3-on-1, almost a 4-on-1.
Everybody's seeing the light at the end of the tunnel because it's the last day, and they're just opening up a tad more, taking chances.
They get out of here quite fast as well. I saw some players walking over this morning with suitcases in tow, yes. And credit to Katie Bettinger, that entire team that does a lot during the draft week to make sure all these guys can get here in time, get home where they need to be in time, whatever it might be. A lot of that behind the scenes work. It's a team effort. Even the training staff from the Golden Knights, the equipment staff from both the Golden Knights and Silver Knights,
and
put in
Savannah.
a lot of work. Yes, and Savannah. Yes, all put in the work this week. And it's important to have that Golden Knight staff around because it gives these young players an idea of what it's like at the professional level. Or NHL level, I should say, as some have already played professionally.
I wonder if J Dubs put on a seminar on having the sticks ready.
Probably.
In case somebody breaks a stick
Yes.
with the notoriety that he gained over the Mark Stone.
He was my
play.
Conn Smythe vote. He turned the entire series around.
Assistant equipment manager with the swift stick handoff that led to that Brett Howden goal. What game was that? Game 2? I want to think it was game 2 of the Cup final. He tried to act camera shy about it when we tried to ask him about it, but you can't get away from us, especially when you end up on SportsCenter, top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, bud.
Tell you, if he is camera shy, we better move that camera because he knows it's there now.
And he's not the shyest guy.
He's not shy when it comes to giving Darren Millard a hard time, that's for sure.
Don't do amazing things if you can't accept the congratulations. Well, it looks like Isaiah Seville has gone to the bench. We're going to see where the clock is out our window here.
Studio 31, which overlooks the Summerlin pad here at City National Arena.
It is a 5-3 lead for Team White with 2.5 to play. And if my eyes didn't fail me on the monitor, I believe that Ryan Craig is behind the red bench and Rick Bennett is behind the white bench.
Jamie Heward also assisting this week, assistant coach with the Henderson Silver Knights. After the scrimmage the other day that went to the shootout, Heward walked by me and gave me the 1-0 sign. So he's already keeping track of stats.
He's counting. Jamie Heward, who works predominantly with the Blue Liners. You're Ronan looking for some room. Plotachuk for Gay. See, it's a 2-goal game in the dying minutes. We got to start zeroing in here on results.
Bring us home.
Oh, that's a great chance in front for Daniel D'Amato. It's Team Red's in a bit of swarm mode here. Weeb diving down. Nice dangle again out of the zone. But firing wide of the empty net was Ryder Donovan. Here's a break the other way. D'Amato leading the rush. That pass tough to handle for Euronen. As we reach 1 minute to play in development camp.
Something about play-by-play guys who know exactly when there's a minute to go.
It is impressive.
We're just counting down to the next hot dog break, that's all. Think I'm joking. Brendan Bresson's forced out to center.
4th of July has passed, Brian.
We get the whole week. My patriotism. That's heading towards the empty net. I don't know who pinballed that down.
Okay, how does that go in? And you have an opportunity between the circles or between the blue lines, and you can't score. Like Vegas early on this year
Could
had
not
the
score an
heck of
empty
a
net
time
goal.
with empty net goals.
It looks
Or
like it was
opportunities.
Garrett
I
Pike
think
who
Bruce Cassidy-
found the empty net.
Bruce Cassidy had the quote after a game where they scored one. He said, "I almost passed out. I didn't believe it hit the empty net."
Well, even I'm always going to remember for Mark Stone his hat trick in Game 5. It took 3 tries at the empty net.
Yeah.
Wide,
And it wasn't the
wide
last
right,
goal of the
post
game.
left. Yeah, right. Nick Waugh for good measure. So that'll put this one away. 6-3 Team White. A little time left on the clock. Brendan Brisson for some final fireworks. That's a nice stretch pass. And that one gets over the line. Good drive to the net for Simon Pinard. Played for the University of New Brunswick after predominantly in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League before then. So gets his number on the board before the end of the week.
Following the path of Joel Ward, who went to Canadian University and then to the National Hockey League.
That's all she wrote. Team White takes both scrimmages of development camp, presented by Martin Harris.
6-4 the final. This was 1-1 heading into the third period, am I right?
You know, that sounds correct.
Mylanta.
Yes, sounds correct. Bob Lowe's wanted goals coming into this one, and
He shall have them.
goals he received will be fun to hear what the hockey operations staff makes of this camp overall. But it seems like everyone views it as a very successful camp, a very fun week filled with cooking class, baseball games, pool time, as Will Nickel calls everybody in with the staff, give them one nice last final pep talk before everyone heads their different ways.
Again, really appreciate Tim Speltz and Will Nickel joining us during the intermissions. But, talking to Will in the second intermission, we talked about this too. If he gives us that kind of an inspirational pep talk in 10 minutes, imagine what these guys get, not just this week, but, it's especially for young, forming minds and professionals. How great to have someone like that in your corner to visit you throughout the year when you're going through your highs and lows. I think it just gives us great insight into just how valuable weeks like this can be.
As we wrap up, your favorite part of the week, Darren?
Seeing some of the new players come in, but I also really appreciated Lucas Cormier being around and seeing the growth and the confidence in a player like that. And Ryder Donovan, the conversation that I had with him yesterday, and watching his contributions to this game and being so involved from his journey off the ice, he'll be a player that I'll be following all season long because of that.
And Brian?
Well, there's a couple of Silver Knights alum in this camp that I know well. It was fun to see them enjoy the week and take leadership positions. And I got a text from Brendan Brisson last night. It was a goal he scored on Isaiah Seville. Someone had a cell phone video of it from the office. He says, "Is there a better camera angle of it, because I need to send it to Isaiah?" So it's good to see them having some fun. But on top of it, after the Stanley Cup celebration, everyone talks about how hard everyone works. You get through this week and you really are reminded, and it's demonstrated how hard everyone works to make this possible. And while it is important to enjoy the summer, but to turn the page to next season and the effort to do it again, Just a really, really fun week to see a lot of people's hard work rewarded both on the ice and off the ice as they continue to build a plan for the future of the VGK.
And thanks to all of the viewers today for tuning in, and the future certainly looking bright for the Vegas Golden Knights. Keep it locked on your Vegas Golden Knights digital channels, because like we've alluded to, some good content still coming your way from Development Camp presented by Martin Harris Construction. For Brian McCormick, Darren Millard, I'm Ashley Weiss, and we will see ya right here at Development Camp next season. In the meantime, everyone have a great summer.